Welcome to Communication, Connection, Community, the Podcaster's Podcast. This podcast takes a deep dive into modern-day communication strategies in the podcasting space. We chat with interesting people who make the podcasting and speaking spaces exciting and vibrant. We also dive into the podcasting community with news, updates, latest trends and topics from this ever-evolving space. So strap in. It's going to be one amazing ride. Let's dive into today's episode. As podcasters, sometimes it feels like you're spinning a lot of plates, doesn't it? I mean, if you're a podcaster, you understand that because there's a number of moving parts to your show, especially when you get into marketing and promotion and building community. And then there's the piece where if you are an existing podcaster, or even if you're a guest on podcasts, you have to pitch podcasts to go on. And there's a strategy to that. And today's guest is an amazing person who's been in the podcasting space for nearly 10 years. And we're going to cover those topics: LinkedIn for podcasting. We're going to cover pitching, and we're going to cover niching as well with Ben Albert. Ben is the owner of Belbert Marketing LLC. He's also the curator of the Real Estate Business Connection Network, where he hosts 5 podcasts: Rochester Business Connections, Learn, Speak Tech, Learn, Speak Teach, Ben's Bites, 5-Minute Fridays, and Real Hits. Once an underdog, now a successful entrepreneur, Ben is passionate about helping underdogs achieve their dreams. As I said, he is a podcaster, clearly, and he's a sought-after podcast guest. Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Pumped to be here. This is going to be fun.
I am stoked you are here, brother. I don't know who's going to be grabbing the microphone more, you or me, because with 5 podcasts, you can't be mic shy.
Well, that's the mic's on my head. Most people listen to audio, but I'm wearing a headset. I could go do the dishes and I'm still talking into the mic, Kyle. We're going to have fun with it.
Please don't, just because we are recording the video as well. But for people who are listening, yes, Ben has a headset mic on, and I'm reliant on the trusty Blue Yeti, at least for the time being. We're doing an upgrade to that in the near future. There's a few things I want to unpack with you today, because you've been in the podcasting space for how long?
2016.
What was it that led you to podcasting to begin with? What was it that made you go, podcasting? Yes, that's for me.
I was the shyest kid. I was not a chatterbox. You never would imagine I'd be a podcaster. I had 0 entrepreneurs on my wall. I wanted to be the next basketball player, but I'm a short guy. I grew up to be 5'7". I like to say 5'8", but my girlfriend measured me yesterday. I'm 5'7". On the basketball court at a young age, I was pushed around a lot. I was bullied, became very shy, reclusive, and I found the music scene in high school. My friend gave me a CD, then I became an advocate. Well before I knew what marketing or podcasting or promotion was, I was setting up MySpace pages, Facebook pages, running merch booths. And in 2016, I set up a Rochester, New York, my hometown, music podcast, because I had finally found my tribe. I felt like I was a part of something, and there wasn't a music podcast in my city. And really the reason was I wanted to get into places for free. I started a music podcast. Nowadays I have more of a business personal growth podcast, but I learned a lot of the skills kind of sloppily doing podcasting for fun on the side, never making a penny doing it. And nowadays I've kind of transitioned into business, but music band's still alive and well inside of me. And that's where it all got started.
What are some of those things that you learned early on? And again, we're talking 2016. Podcasting was way different then than it is today. There was a lot of barrier of entry. It wasn't as easy to get in. Everything was still, even though it was digital, you're still writing your own show notes manually at that point. And what were some of the things that you, within the first year, learned and went, oh, lesson learned, never do that again?
I would disagree that there was this barrier to entry. I do think there was less tools to help write the show notes. There was less YouTube videos. There was less direction. But really all I had to do is go to SoundCloud.com. And modern podcasters might even be like, SoundCloud, isn't that like for mumble rappers and like fringe music? I was a music guy. I went to SoundCloud.com, hosted my RSS feed from SoundCloud.com. And really what I did is it was more journalistic. I would go to like a concert and I would bring a portable recorder and I would record their set, and I would go to like 3 bands in 3 days, record all 3. Or I'd go to a music event with like a festival with 12 bands and get as many recordings as possible. And then I'd add my own monologue kind of like in between in post-production using GarageBand. I I was lucky that I had a little bit of a music background, that I understood what GarageBand was. I understood that I could use SoundCloud to post this. And so it wasn't that complicated, but also the episodes weren't very good. The sound quality on my portable recorder, getting live music, like my editing, like none of it was very good. The levels weren't consistent. You ever lay in bed and you're listening to an episode? It's all quiet, so you turn it up a little bit so you can hear it a little bit better. And then the ad comes on and it's like 6x the volume of the conversation, and it burns your eardrums and wakes you up. And then you have to turn it down a little bit, but then you can't hear the conversation. That was my show. It was not leveled well. It was not perfect. But I have to argue against it. It actually wasn't that hard to get started, but I also wasn't a top-rated podcast either.
Which, again, when you're starting, you're not supposed to be. Unless you're somebody who's showing up, having done a lot of things in their career, like if Oprah Winfrey, for example. Oprah Winfrey starts a podcast, she knows she's automatically going to have a following. She's showing up with a lot of credibility, and she's also showing up with a crew that's going to be doing all the back-end work anyhow, right? You're doing it for interest, for passion, for love, out of those reasons. I'll counter then what I said about the lower barrier of entry now, but I think there was just some things that were different then. SoundCloud, it's funny you mentioned that because I know there's still content on SoundCloud. That's podcasters' content. And I always forget that exists because there's so many other platforms that we leverage, and SoundCloud it doesn't get lost, but it's certainly not one that comes to the top of mind. But you've learned a lot. You're now, as you said, you're successful in the space of having business podcasts. I want to dive into a couple of things with the time that we have because they're pretty hard-hitting things. And by the way, congratulations on your journey and where it's taken you over the last 9 years, but it hasn't been by accident. It's been intentional. It's been strategic. Those are some of the things I want to talk about today. Number one is, I don't know which one I want to start with. So I'll start at the top of the list. How about that? Maybe I should start in alphabetical order. I don't know. But a lot of people are leveraging social media to get the word out about their podcasts. And I know that some people are getting frustrated with the Facebooks of the world and they're really wanting to niche. We'll talk about niching in a moment. But what are some of the challenges that you're seeing that people are doing who are podcasting on LinkedIn or sharing their content on LinkedIn? What are some of the things that you're seeing?
Some of the challenges for sharing content on LinkedIn. It's an interesting place to start because it does come down to niching. It does come down to knowing your audience. It does come down to understanding why you're there in the first place. You shouldn't be on a social media platform just because someone on a podcast said, you need to be on Instagram. And then you go on Instagram, but you didn't actually study your audience. Is your audience there? Do you understand the tool? So we can get really microscopic, but a good way to kind of weave in all these points all in one short story is we kind of set the stage pretty strong with Music Ben, but Music Ben was working at a marketing firm during the pandemic and got let go. I got fired, I got furloughed, I was unemployed. So Music Ben was broke, unemployed, and non-essential. Business Ben didn't exist yet, but I thought maybe I could be an entrepreneur. So the reason I chose LinkedIn, this is knowing your audience, knowing your purpose, like why am I getting on the platform in the first place? The reason I chose LinkedIn was I knew that there were business owners on LinkedIn. It's really that simple. I knew there was business owners, and I knew that every time I went on Facebook, there was politics, there was drama, there was pandemic, there was masks. I wasn't really interested in engaging in that conversation every single day. I had a LinkedIn profile, but it was dormant. Basically took my cover letter, because I was trying to find a job and failing, took my cover letter, used it as my LinkedIn description, so this wasn't pretty, but it was talking about my vision of where I'm going to go, like am I going to stare at the wall? Am I going to find new opportunities? I'm here to find new opportunities. And then I started a business podcast because I wanted to talk to business owners. I wanted to strategically meet them. I wanted to learn from them. And I knew in the back of my head, I didn't know entirely if this entrepreneurship thing would work, but I knew that I had a marketing background, so I knew that I possibly could help them. They're a business owner. They might need a website. They might need social media management, SEO, but more than anything, they know so much that I don't. So I'm going to start a business podcast. I called it Rochester Business Connections. I'm from Rochester, New York. Rochester Business Connections. Why? Because I needed some. And if you go on LinkedIn and send a friend request, it's called a connection request. Rochester Business Connections. I went to University of Brockport, State University, New York, Brockport, used the LinkedIn filter to find business owners in Rochester that went to SUNY Brockport. Same school, so we're both alumni. Proximity that we live in the same city. We're both business owners technically because I started a tiny LLC not knowing what I was doing. And the hilarious part, it's a pandemic, so I can't even take them out to coffee anyways. I'm going to use LinkedIn to do it and skip the line because the business owner or the CEO can show up in their pajama pants on Zoom and it's fresh and it's new. So I reached out business owners and ended there, but the purpose was simple. I wanted to meet people. I knew that they possibly could become clients, and I was able to build a foundation on LinkedIn doing just that. But it starts with, you ask what mistakes people make. Wasn't that well thought out? I don't think I was that clear when I started, but that's exactly what I did. So if you have clarity, why am I on the social media platform? How is this going to help my podcast? Am I doing it for networking? Am I doing it to post content? Am I doing it to find clients? Am I doing it to find guests? Why am I here? Who's my audience? And I just knew my audience was business owners. I went to LinkedIn, found them, built a business around that. And that was well before I rebranded to anything outside of Rochester, New York. And when I rebranded, I actually, my listenership went down for a little bit because of that. That was a lot. So let's pause there, but there's a lot we can dissect if you'd like.
It's funny how when you do a rebrand that the listenership drops a tad for it to build back up again. I had that happen about a year ago as well. There are a couple of things I want to unbundle there, or at least piggyback on and say, okay, you attacked it with niche, which I wasn't going to talk about that till later, but niche is probably a good place to start. What are some other things that you're seeing in the podcasting space that are red flags to you that people go, okay, well, if you're podcasting, why are you doing it like this? Why aren't you leveraging LinkedIn for the platform that it is? So aside from the niching piece, what else are you seeing out there that podcasters could easily correct and get either more traction or get more of the audience that they want?
You're doing a better job at this than I am. You have a podcast about podcasting with podcasters, helping podcasters. It's very clear. I don't even know what my podcast is about. I'm being transparent. Like Carl, we have episodes about cult survivors. Then we have episodes about marketing. We have episodes about near-death experiences. And then we have episodes about sales. I'm a little bit all over the place. The thorough line is it's all about connection. It's all about the power of human development. It's all about community, but it's kind of all over the place. The fact you have a podcast for podcasters, I think serves in your benefit because you can't be everyone for everybody. You can't do everything for everyone and do everything. Getting hyper-specific helps. Roger Wakefield actually kind of hit me up. He's, if you go to YouTube, someone can do this if they like. It just helps the algorithm. But if you go to YouTube and type in the word plumber, you type in plumbing, you type in residential plumbing, commercial plumbing, the first result every single time, Roger Wakefield Plumbing Education. He has mastered YouTube. He is incredible. Now he has a podcast and all this stuff, but he has mastered YouTube. And what he said to me, and it hit me over the head like a brick, he said, if you can't explain what you do in one word, YouTube has no clue what your podcast is about. YouTube has no clue what you do. That's a problem. I type in business podcast. I'm probably page 47. There's Diary of a CEO up there. That was a long rant to say I'm struggling this because I have a lot of interests. But if I were to make a piece of advice, if I were to start a podcast from scratch, I would go super, super hyper niche. I'd want to be able to describe exactly what I do in at most 3 words. Rochester Business Podcast is what I started with. And then you can own the algorithm for those terms, and your audience knows exactly what they're going to get. Do as I say and what Caro does, not as what I do.
So I'm going to give you some accolades, though, and say the fact that you have established Rochester Business Podcast
Connections. It's Rochester Business Connections, and then I swapped the word Rochester for real.
I'm going to give you some accolades here and say that if you have Rochester Business Connections, that is fairly niche. You're going after business connections within a geographic area. And I say this because some of my early podcasting days, before I got into podcasting, this guy by the name of Sam Crowley, if you know who Sam Crowley is. And one of the things that he said is when you're starting to look at podcasting, and he had us literally in this 90-minute workshop I was in that he was doing. He said, pull out your cell phone. So I pulled up my cell phone and he's saying, type in, and we were in Toronto at the time. Just type in Toronto real estate. Tons of podcasts come up, not even in Toronto, all come up. Now type in Toronto real estate investors. Now type in Toronto It might have been multifamily or commercial. So really narrowing it down. And the messaging to that was the more niche you can get, and I didn't even realize this when I was doing this exercise with him, but the more niche you can get, the better chance of solidifying, as you said it, that spot, that algorithm within the space. You do have it. The fact that content is maybe just going off in many different directions, that's okay too, because I think that there's a market for that. So we could debate this all the live long day, but I'm giving you that accolade because I think you've earned it because you have solidified that and you clearly explained it.
Well, and if you type in Rochester Business Podcast or Rochester Connections or even Rochester Business Networking, I come right up. But I was the dummy that got high on the fact I had lots of downloads and rebranded from Rochester to Real and actually turned my back on my hometown in doing it. So I'm just being critical of myself, but I started the right way. But here's another thing, and this is a micro lesson. You build a foundation in your niche. You build a reputation, you create proof of concept, you build a listenership, then you have the capacity to build upon that foundation. Joe Rogan didn't just click a mic and start a podcast. He was the Fear Factor guy and the MMA guy. He had an audience first. So I built a Rochester audience, and then I started introducing people from outside of Rochester to that Rochester audience, and then I expanded outside of Rochester with my audience.
I'm glad that you share that, Ben, because there are so many people who think, well, if Joe Rogan can have like 11 billion listeners, I should be able to get at least 1 million when I launch my show tomorrow. Not understanding that there's a journey that has happened before that. Joe Rogan is successful because he made us here eat a lot of weird stuff on television and called it Fear Factor, or had us scale mountains that were literally like a straight line all the way up, called it Fear Factor. That's why he's successful. And of course, the MMA stuff too. But that's the journey ahead of time. Oprah Winfrey didn't wake up yesterday, decide, I'm going to start a podcast and hit however many millions of downloads because she's nobody. She's a somebody in everything that she has done to create that. Thought leaders, Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, all of these people, Brian Tracy now, I think has a podcast. These are folks who have been on the journey. They didn't just say, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and start a podcast because I've heard it's a good thing to do. They've done it strategically based on all the other strategic things they've done in their business. And that, I think, is the overlying message. And not jumping in thinking energy and gusto ready to go, that you're going to get there as fast as those that have trailblazed before us, because for the reasons that I shared, that's already done that. I want to talk about pitching because you're a guest. You're also a host. So I'm assuming you get pitched and I'm assuming you give pitches. As a matter of fact, you pitched me. You're here. So whatever the pitch was, it worked.
Wasn't very good. Do you remember? Do you have any clue what I said?
I can go back and look, but I have read some doozies that are literally one sentence. I think I'd make a great guest on your show. Please check me out.
Even the best pitch is forgotten. What I sent, you can look it up if you want, but it's something of the likes of this. I do the conversation starter. It's not even a pitch. It's literally something like, hey, Carl, are you possibly accepting guest openings at this time? I might be a good fit. I haven't listened to the podcast yet, but if you send me an episode or if you're accepting guests, I'd love to listen to the show and circle back, and I can let you know if I think I might be a fit. It's very laissez-faire. I think I say it more concise when I pitch, but it's, hey, are you looking for guests? If so, send me an episode. I'll listen, and then I'll pitch you. It's a reverse pitch because usually they'll look at my LinkedIn, they'll look at my Podmatch is where we met, they'll look at my LinkedIn, my Podmatch profile, so on and so forth, and they'll do research themselves. Believe it or not, it's actually uncommon that they even send me an episode to listen to. And guess what happens when they do? I just listen to the episode. And if it's 4 hours long or if it's an hour long, maybe I listen to 15 minutes where I can hear the intro, understand the purpose, and then I circle back and I say, I love that you have a resilience-based podcast. I want to talk about how both my parents have passed away. Like, that's a story. That's an example. It's the anti-pitch. I get pitched all day too, and people don't do what I just said. They don't start a conversation. They give me the entire encyclopedia, and then they go, but if you're not interested, that's okay. I'm like, you're doing the takeaway? Like, what? You just gave me an encyclopedia, and then you're acting like you're the one who doesn't care?
Well, sales 101, and again, maybe that's what their part of the technique is. And again, I don't know, but sales 101 is if you want to sell something to someone, take it away from them first. And again, it works well when there's a document sliding back and forth across the table. When I worked in the insurance space, we would quite often do that, do the needs analysis, come back and present that in needs analysis while husband and wife sitting at the kitchen table going, I don't know. And your hand is always on the document. And then you're slowly sliding it away as you say, well, without this coverage or whatever it is, it's sales 101 and it's psychological and it works. Maybe, I don't know for sure, the psychology behind it.
You're exactly right. I want to quickly say I use that myself. I say I might be a good fit. I'm not sure yet. It's the takeaway from the start. I want to make sure I listen to your show. But the thing is, I get the investment that, yes, they're looking for guests first. And I do if you're not interested, that's okay. But send me an episode if you might be, and then we'll talk about it. The exact same strategy, just done differently.
And by the way, I just read over your pitch and you were close. Within a few sentences here and there, you were pretty much spot on, but very similar. What I think is different school of thought for different people. But I'm a host. Since I cleaned up my Podmatch inbox 2 days ago, I have 14 messages. Now, not all of those are pitches, but I'm guessing about half of them probably are. If I don't get to them today, I know that within a couple of days, when the week rolls around, I'll probably have 14 more messages that I'll have to respond to. And again, half of those will probably be pitches. The host doesn't have time necessarily to go through, firstly, every single word of your pitch. And secondly, if you're making them jump through too many hoops to see if you're a fit, my opinion, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Not you personally. You might be shooting yourself in the foot. What made it interesting, if I can just say, seeing as we're talking about pitching, what made it interesting was when you said something about, now I have to actually go back and read it. My current topics are all around networking on LinkedIn, creative collaboration, and community building. Well, I know based on where podcasting is headed, community building, connections, we've already talked about LinkedIn. I already know that you've already piqued my interest. You're now forcing me, beyond my will, to go check out and see if definitely somebody I want to talk to. You did set the table correctly. Even though you're calling it the anti-pitch, you did set the table correctly.
I'm surprised I added those details. I usually get lazy and I add no details, but all the contents of the table gone. I mean, what did I do? I offered topics and ideas that I already predetermined would be beneficial for your listeners. Possibly, maybe you've already done these topics and maybe you come back and suggest a new one. But I didn't pitch a mother podcast on 3 top tips for being a single dad. It's actually not the worst pitch, come to mention it, but I'm bad at making these up on the spot.
That one's not bad.
I think a mom would love that on a mother's podcast because it's the other end of the coin. A better example would be I didn't pitch a sports podcast on how to be a trombonist.
One example of somebody who pitched me something along the lines of, hey, I've been listening to your podcast, coming from an agency. Been listening to your podcast, and I like what you did in episode 3, and I think we have the perfect guest for you. I'm making up a name here. It's Bill Schwartz, and Bill Schwartz is a Red Seal chef down in Honolulu. They've been in the restaurant world for ages, and they're great with this culinary dish, and their specialty is this. We think they'd be a great fit for your show. No, they're not. Mine is not the cooking show. Mine is communication, connection, community. To your point, even if they had said, you know what, he's a Red Seal chef or whatever, or a Michelin star chef, but he has a very unique way of communicating with his team. Now you've piqued my interest, but not about coming on my show and sharing with me how to make the world's best souffle. It's not what the show's about.
It's all framing. Like, people can hear it in my voice. When I was giving examples, I had no certainty because I was finding holes in my own examples. If I'm a trombonist pitching a sports podcast, I'm going to pitch them on being part of the band and what the athletes don't see when the music, like the band is like riling up the audience. It's like behind the scenes in the entire ecosystem of a game. You can always, if you know what the podcast is about, you can position yourself as a fit. All that being said, if you have to try really hard to position yourself, don't pitch that podcast. Don't waste that host's time. Don't waste your time. Be deliberate with your decision making.
I love it. I'm really glad you shared that. Oh my goodness, Ben, I could talk to you all the live long day. We've talked about LinkedIn for podcasters. I think we could probably do a deeper dive on that, maybe on another episode, but I definitely like we've scratched the surface of it because I think that the future, the now and the future in business is people really leveraging their LinkedIn better, as opposed to relying on other social medias to do that maybe aren't the best fit for them if clients is what they really want. And we've talked about pitching. I'm going to throw this question in here though for you, because I know you've been podcasting for nearly 10 years at the recording of this episode. And again, I can't say congratulations enough on firstly sticking with it and not being a victim of pod fade, but then also really embracing it and rising up and being a star in the space. I've been doing this almost 10 years. Where, in your estimation, is podcasting going in the future? Let's say the next 2 to 5 years.
It's such a big question. I'm just imagining those VR glasses or goggles, put it all over your head, and then it's a virtual, and we laugh and I goof, but honestly, the technology is literally already here that I could put on goggles, be sitting on a couch, watching Oprah have a conversation with Eckhart Tolle, watching the next political debate, watching a sermon at my church. I can be sitting down on my couch and be immersed in the experience. And I think that's where podcast is going. It started off as audio, very similar to AM radio. Now the video technology exists that we can create immersive experiences. And if you're like me and you don't have any clue how to get started with that, we don't have to dive into that super quick, but how do we create a more immersive experience for our audience? How do we meet them where they are? Because the future of podcasting, I don't necessarily think is just going to be it's not going to just be listening. It's going to be creating community and tribes around your ideas. It's going to be creating immersive experiences, live events. It's really, you have to integrate a lot of the new media technologies and the concerns of today. I think that's just new technology. It's community and just integrating, creating a tribe. I'm just repeating myself. I'm talking in circles. That's how you know it's a prediction. And I don't have any data to prove it. This is just intuitively what I believe.
But it's your gut instinct saying, having been in the space for the length of time that you have, and saying that I can see this happening. And I agree. I think community is where it's at. I think that for years we've spent a lot of time and effort building out our shows, and that's it. Now there's this push towards community. It's not just what you do during the show, it's what you do after. It's the meetups, it's the networking, it's the connections through, be it social media channels or be it through your own networks, whatever they are. It's about the community. It's about bonus content. It's about people wanting more of what Ben Albert has to offer, for example, as opposed to just, oh, that was a great episode, I can't wait to hear the next one. It's, I wonder where the next meetup is, or I wonder, is he doing early releases yet? Or what's that green room conversation going to be after the show? So I think there'll be more of that. And I think you're right. I think we will have more immersive experiences as the technology becomes more readily available and easier for all of us to tap into. So I think you're spot on. Couple quick things before we go. I always give the guest, which is you, the opportunity to pass something along to our audience, a gift, a takeaway, something like that.
My one takeaway is, can we do a fun analogy real quick? I do this at events and speeches sometimes. I want to hammer home a point. How often do you brush your teeth? The listener can think about this, but I need an answer from you, Carl. How often do you brush your teeth? 3 times a day. So you're an overachiever. The most common answer is 2. Each time, about how long?
It's an electric, so that's how long it goes. That's easy.
Electric, you could get it done in 30 seconds, but I'm an underachiever apparently. 3 times a day. A lot of people say 2 to 3 times a day, few minutes a day. Who's going to have better teeth in a year? The person who does 2 minutes a day, twice a day, or the person that gets really excited because they learned everything about oral health and got bored and didn't implement anything? My final lesson is I don't know what single aha. I don't know if there was any light bulbs. I don't know if this episode was a waste of time and you have to go listen to another episode to answer this question. What's your twice a day? Maybe 10 minutes a day, maybe 15 minutes a day, maybe 1 hour a week. What is your incremental thing that you can do every day or every weekday for a year? And then who's going to have a better podcast, a better business, more sales, better relationships at the end of the year? You or the person that didn't implement anything? So you can turn this podcast off. Go ahead and do it, because we can listen to podcasts all day, but it's all about taking at least one idea and implementing it.
I like how I'm the overachiever and you're just the regular guy.
I do like a minute at a time, twice a day. I usually floss, but I make excuses.
As does everyone when they go to their dentist and the dentist says, have you been flossing? Yes, I have. No. Yes, I have. You understand.
They say yes, but they give the no nod. Of course they have.
Connection. People want to get a hold of you. People want to listen to your show. What's the best way for them to do that?
They found me here, so they must already know how to find podcasts. We joked in the pre-show, like, I'm only here because of you. I'm Carl Servin. I'm serving here the audience. Do this while I talk. wherever you found this, like it depends on the platform. You might hit thumbs up, you might hit 5 stars, you might leave a comment, you might leave a review. One thing we didn't talk about, but if you send DMs to the hosts don't get enough messages. So sending a direct message is a great way to let me or Caro know you appreciate what we do. So do that first as barrier to entry. And then you can find my podcast. We mentioned it, Real Business Connections, anywhere you found this. And it's a possibility I failed you as a marketer. If that's the case, type in Real Business Connections into Google. And if you cannot spend Real Business Connections, if you can't spell it, it'll autocorrect. And if you spell it that bad that it doesn't autocorrect, I'm not the guy for you.
But to make it even simpler, we'll put it in the show notes for you for sure. So all of that is there. The link to the podcast, Ben's connection pieces as well. Ben, it has been such an honor and pleasure having you on the show. Ben Albert, thank you so much for being my guest today.
It was fun.
And hey, thank you for being a part of the show today. So glad you could join us. Believe it or not, I can't work this magic by myself. So thanks to my amazing team, our audio engineer, Don Carillio, our sonic branding genius, Kenton Dilborowski, and the person who works the arms, all of our arms actually, our project manager and my trusty assistant, Jillavel Tiongo, known to us here simply as July. If you like what you heard today, let us know. You can leave us a comment or review or even send us a voice note. And if you really liked it, we hope you'll share it with your friends and your colleagues. If you don't like what you heard today, well, please feel free to share it with your enemies. And if you know of someone who would make a great guest on the show, let us know about it. You can get in touch with us by going to our show notes where all of our connection points are there, including the links to our website, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. And if you're ready to be a guest on podcasts or even start your own show, let's have a conversation. We'll show you the simplest way to get into the podcasting space and rock it. Because, after all, we're Podcast Solutions Made Simple. Catch you again next time.